Thank you very much for attending today. This is an APM PMO SIG webinar, which will be presented by David Dunning. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, and I will now hand over to him.
I'm grateful for the chance to present the stuff today. Just looking at that, the title of that then, perhaps the title was a little bit intriguing to some people, I don't know. Governance as a PMO, I just need to do what each program board asks me, right? The cheeky little implication there is that maybe some of us who run PMOs are servants to the business and provide assistance and get pulled around and thrown around by pretty strong independent projects, programs or portfolios, and don't necessarily have much influence on efficiency and effectiveness across the service, or even on the alignment of what the projects and programs are doing to strategic objectives. We shall see. So this is the basis of the conversation today. So should our PMOs be a servant to the business, or should they be helping to drive the business? And I propose to you that a framework that a business support service can fit in, that we call business integrated governance, would perhaps help our organisations more effectively deliver strategic outcomes, and as a byproduct, more effectively deliver programs and projects. And the question is, can we grow our PMOs in terms of capacity and intellect and ability and all that sort of stuff, from what their service level might be in one part of the business to be that all-encompassing business support function that really an organisation needs if it's to connect strategy to delivery. So that's pretty much the subject matter. If anyone was really here to hear about unified comms in the pharmaceutical industry, that's next week, so please exit now. So moving swiftly on, a little bit about me. Hi, I'm David. I'm the founder of a few companies. I've been involved in portfolio programs and projects for many years. I work with organisations on a freelance basis. I'm a director and majority owner of a technology business. I've got all kinds of interests, but over the years I've supported the portfolio management SIG in its formation and early operation, and blogging was my thing, as well as presenting. I've worked with a couple of PMO conferences to talk about portfolio management and innovation management, and latterly project controls scenarios where we talk about enterprise-wide this or enterprise-wide that. We've launched this thing called the Core P3M Data Club, which I'll mention a bit more of later, which is a community interest company to share knowledge. I'll come back to that, but that's kicked off and got running. I've talked about innovation to program management conferences. I've talked about business integrated governance to various conferences, and last year I talked about how to position your PMO to better support your COO, which is kind of related to what we're talking about today. So I've done a few things, got a few credentials. Hopefully what I've pulled together from my own experience and that of others will be stimulating to those that have managed to make the call today. So what we're going to cover, I'm going to present to you like a weird and wacky scenario that you may or may not tune into. It's a stalking horse really to get a discussion going. Talk about potentially these parochial programs that fling us around as service providers and PMOs. He says, tongue in cheek again. Talk about that and other PMO challenges, maybe having first discussed what a PMO is quite a bit briefly. Talk about business integrated governance and the opportunity that gives businesses to a simple degree, not in great depth. There are other materials and webinars to cover business integrated governance which you can attend, but this is for business integrated governance from a PMO perspective. I hope that lands. We'll talk about how to differentiate the terms business support and PMO. Clearly, the services PMOs provide are providing a level of business support, but I've used the phrase business support to talk about the support that a business integrated governance scenario receives, part of which would be a PMO, And the question for this discussion is, can my PMO expand and widen to take on business support beyond what just projects ask for? We'll discuss how to start, and I'll attempt to take a couple of questions along the way during section breaks. I'll see if Maya's got any questions and pause, but we'll have hopefully time at the end. But this will be quick. I'll hammer through it. The slides are available. I'm happy to do a voiceover of the slides and share those, but hold tight, it's going to be a bit of a whistle stop. So without further ado, parochial programs. So the proposition for the discussion: projects and programs can, or maybe should be, very focused on addressing their own needs. How do we avoid possible inefficiency, the inefficiency of parochialism, to enable these programs to be organisationally aligned and effective at decision making? So that's the challenge. And just to offer some definitions, PMO, a phrase that's all things to all men and women, perhaps. So a PMO, that prefix, what's the prefix? Is the P, is it portfolio? Is it program? Is it product? Is it project? What is it? So I see many support functions who are called project support offices, which do more than just projects. So I'm not going to get hung up on what that first P is, but then let's agree that we're not going to get hung up on what this support function is called, as long as we're clear on what it does. Because the support can be provided to the corporate level, so it's connecting strategy to delivery. It can be provided to look after maybe a joint venture within or without our organisation. Our departments can have a support function. Some of the functional areas support function, even our individual projects and big programs can have a support function. There are lots of needs for support around the place, and those of you that have searched, there are several places you can go to learn about or look up what these standard services might be. So you got there's a whole body of knowledge there to help us describe what we carry out. And essentially that all boils down into decision support, assisting an entity to make choices about what next. Centre of excellence, obviously, to provide knowledge and wisdom to help their supported body to proceed. Delivery support, capture the data, do outreach, all that funky stuff, and assurance, which perhaps needs a little bit more independence than the direct service might offer. So when I say PMO, I'm saying let's agree that this is a vague term and it needs to be defined in context. But it does this kind of stuff, and that this is the boundary with which I'm working within. And let's all agree. Well, I can say that it's a given. Effective support, e.g. a PMO, especially a PMO, contributes to project success and avoidance of failure. Some of you may have seen the APM's 12 success factors. Some of those are support. So there's no one here, I don't think, that's going to suggest a PMO and support generally isn't critical to success, because it clearly is. So let's look at this scenario, and this is one I've tweaked it a little bit, but it's very similar to a scenario I was working with recently, to be honest. So this isn't totally mad, but let's take a scenario where I'm a large business and I've got a very important program, and one of the execs within the business has determined it has to happen, and they think it's so important that they need to hire somebody to oversee it, somebody from outside to oversee it. And that person who's so capable and powerful comes in and maybe quite rationally wants to bring in their own team. They want their own program manager. They want their own people to look after stakeholders or analysts. They may even want their own PMO lead. Sounds perfectly rational to the exec, right? But how does this fit with the PMO, whatever flavor it is, and within our organisation? Well, for example, where we've developed standards for what these projects and programs should do. We've got a process that takes us through delivery of those things. We've got a mechanism to pull together these projects and programs and report them in a standard way. Maybe we're not involved in the portfolio or the business prioritization process. But what does the program director that comes in think of our corporate PMO? Well, I've seen this, and some of you may have seen this as well. I don't know, but this program director doesn't necessarily want to play ball with the corporate PMO. Doesn't want to use the standards. Has got their own things they want to bring to the party. The process is too constraining, and do you know what? I want to deliver some of this agile, and your process doesn't have anything that talks agile in it. Your corporate tool, what a bunch of junk. It's configured in no way for my needs, so no, I don't want to use it. And I'm not really, I've got no time to engage with you, because if I give you my reports, you're wasting my time. I have my one-to-ones with the COO. This isn't going to work. And my program is so important. What do you need anything to do with it for? And they insist upon bringing their own people along. So what does this do to my corporate PMO, to this body of people that I have? Are they really not up for it? Has their reputation been damaged? What's going on? Why are we in this scenario? And I'm sure most people would have seen this sort of thing happen. But what's the consequence? The PMO reputation then, that's not good. They might not have done anything wrong, but there's a little niggle that starts to appear with people. The program that's come up, it's perhaps disproportionately prioritized. And if the PMO would have been involved, these kind of things can be looked at. But the driving director and their team are shoving this program along, and maybe there's a problem with deployment of resource and focus on other equally important projects and programs. Maybe the disruption the program causes, the program is very focused and there's no one there to moderate or do the relationship management with business as usual quite as much, perhaps. We're not quantifying impacts, we're not managing dependencies so much, perhaps. The alignment, the strategy, well, this program's driving and it doesn't really care too much. Is the corporate PMO able to provide that balance because it's being ignored a little bit? And maybe the program succeeds, but maybe we can't see the attributable debris because it's been driven so hard. So I don't know if anyone faces these worries, but I've seen a number of organisations and some recently, and it's almost as if programs become part of a feudal scenario without an effective support function plugging them into the business. They can be a little bit eccentric. And in this scenario, where we're having teams of people set up outside of the corporate PMO, how can I develop and move forward my PMO service if it's continually undermined? It's painful and irritating. So where do we go from here? Well, there's a whole bunch of PMO challenges then. The one we've just kind of outlined as just an example is that parts of the business, I have my own PMO, I don't need to engage with yours, thank you very much. So that's a typical worry. The other worry is that in PMOs, and maybe everyone thinks this too, there's so much more that our PMOs could do. They could reach out and provide project support for other areas. They could provide the resource management across the business. They could work more closely with finance. There's so many more things that PMOs can do, but how do you get that out there and that benefit delivered? It's not all that easy. And especially since, again, many organizations I speak to, they have emerging non-PMO support teams. They have agile delivery support units. They have IT work offices. There are engineering management teams. There are support teams that are popping up that don't necessarily have the prefix P in front of them, that provide support nonetheless. And I'm starting to hear things like, we don't need a PMO, we don't need projects. The world seems to be changing. and if we're stuck on projects and stuck on the word PMO and projects to support them, maybe we'll just get left behind a little bit. And the other thing is, if we want to improve what we do and we want to widen what we do, it's very difficult using an efficiency and effectiveness argument to justify adding more support people, adding more service. How can I make a case for adding 5 more people to support when the engineering director wants 5 more people to cut code for the gaming machine that they have? It's a hard sell to the exec to build up a support function based on an efficiency and effectiveness message. So I think, and maybe you will confirm this, I don't know, my experience is improvement and support is difficult based on an efficiency and effectiveness message, or it's not easy. So how about, instead of coming from this with an angle of we must improve support, how about we first think of what do I need support for? So let's look at what the business needs in terms of support and think about what do we need to provision where, rather than start from the assumption that the answer is PMO and a service catalogue. What next? So contentiously then, let's put down the service catalogue. We'll need it later, but let's put it down for now, and let's think about what the governance framework needs to be and what support needs to enable the business's governance to operate effectively, and start from that perspective and work from the sponsors and the exec as to helping them rather than pushing up and suggesting that they help us. So what is this big thing then? What is business integrated governance? So business integrated governance, what on earth is all this about? Well, it's a model that lifts the operation of change governance from being just an individual project or just a PMO concern to being something that the responsive organisation looks after. So I'll come to it with a definition in a minute, but it's a framework into which we plug our projects, our programs, our business as usual activity, our product development, whatever it is. All of these things that the business does, they're entities that consume resource, finance, management time, attention. We would need to prioritize across all these things if we're going to make our strategy happen. So let's have a little dig into that, shall we? So firstly, business integrated governance, the idea is that at a very high level, it's the framework that enables us to connect from board level concerns to board level responses. So the idea is that we can connect from the opportunities, threats, imperatives and goals that our main or exec board is concerned with, that accept that it's going to have a strategic process to look at all those stimuli and decide what to do about them and in what time frame, but that we're assuming and we're defining in this framework that we'll be mapping, or that entity will be mapping those stimuli into responses, into objectives, targets and challenges. The objectives are things that maybe we give to portfolios, targets that we give to business units, challenges are maybe matters for innovation that we might give to product teams or innovation teams because we want ideas out. And the notion then is that these objectives, targets and challenges are handed over to portfolios and operations teams to run and change the business. And that our change portfolio is one of the portfolios we have, which is delivered through projects and programs with business support and assurance to enable it to make decisions and for it to run in the context of the management teams and the business units that are its customers, with support of finance. So all pretty safe language so far, but we're starting to talk about business as usual in the same words as project and program. So we're using business as usual, project and program, product development, all within this framework, not just project or not just program. We're trying to pull this picture together. Again, operations portfolio delivered through what we're terming here management teams with business support and assurance. using continuous and finite delivery methods. Continuous delivery methods, well, that's business as usual, right? But you also might see it as agile delivery or DevOps, finite delivery projects and programs. We're just differentiating between those two things because business as usual is about those two things. And products, our product portfolio, the product community would have us pull out products from business as usual. There's debate over that, but it's delivered with management teams who do the delivery, with projects and programs perhaps where the development comes from, with business support and assurance using continuous and finite delivery methods. So you can see this is a framework that's getting us from strategies to delivery, and it's not just about projects or programs, it's about trying to get a scheme for how all this fits together. So we're looking to put together a clear governance framework that fits projects and programs together. For example, how can you prioritize just projects? You can't. You need to prioritize all the work that you do, because you might want to sacrifice a bit of business as usual to deliver a project, or you might cancel a project because you've got a target in business as usual you've got to support. Let's come away from the old viewpoint of separating all these things out. In truth, we can't. Let's face up to all this work being stuff we need to manage consistently and coherently. Just developing the idea further, the big idea is that we can connect from strategy to delivery and back again, and that we're pulling together all the components of that, not just the projects and programs, but the products and work streams. And the idea is that we're tracking outcomes and benefits from the changes. We're tracking targets from the business as usual and innovation accomplishments as appropriate. And we're looking to see how all that fits together within success. We're not separating out the different domains. And the idea is then that we as an exec board or wherever we are in the organization, we can start to map what we've been doing to the objectives, targets, and challenges we've set, and be able to map through our accountability to the opportunities, threats that were stimulated us in the first place, show that we've met the imperatives and are comforting the owners that the goals are being reached as well. So the scenario is that we're not biting off just the project and the change bit. We're looking to see how governance works so we can get from strategy to delivery and back again. And the big pitch, the big messaging is at that high level that an organisation that's big is getting faster objective attainment because it's focusing on the right things. It's getting less waste in delivering. Its benefits accruing earlier. All waffly stuff potentially, but this is what we believe. We get greater responsiveness because we can switch resource from one area to the other. Because we've got visibility of all priorities, not just some in some area. Greater confidence in the business and financial assurance process because we've got information that we don't have to wait 5 weeks to access. More reliability, delivering strategic outcomes. Yes, we'll worry about the completion stats, but we also in this scenario more focused on objectives and outcomes than percent complete. And by so doing, we're less waste, more benefit, faster delivery. What else is there apart from reputation growth, share price growth, and all that kind of high level stuff? So there's the big pitch. That's the model. Let's not worry about. Let's not break down project and programs. Let's bring it together and think about how we fit within the organisation. All grandiose and interesting stuff. And the building blocks to business integrated governance, clearly we have to understand and be clear on our organisation. So what is the structure? What is the hierarchy? How does that work? We need to understand what the governance framework is. How do we make decisions, not just across our business units, but on matters that go across the organisation? Many of the transformation programs we have, they may be funded out of one domain, delivered by several others, and the beneficiaries elsewhere. How many organisations can understand where the accountabilities lie within their organisations for things that don't fit perfectly within line functions? And if you don't know where the responsibilities and accountabilities lie, how do you make sure they can happen effectively? So if we're clear on the governance framework and how that works, we'll need to have information to underpin that, and there are modern toolings and capabilities to provide that, and modern information presentation tool sets that we can use to enable the governance to happen. We need clear accountability so that we understand where that's been distributed, and we need to understand how people are executing that accountability, which is where perhaps we plug in the project and program management as well as the other business activities that we're working on. And we need business support to make this happen. We need to be able to plug and pull together the portfolio, program, project, business as usual, product development, all of this stuff, and understand how that aligns to strategy overall, not just in the project area, and assurance to check we're doing the right things the right way. And of course, leadership to demand that this is how we move forward, to resource that this change can happen, and to continue to demand that we operate this way, because it's important to them. And so that's the high-level theory. The entity behind this, the core P3M Data Club, has been going. It's a voluntary group. It's now a community interest company to protect the assets we've developed. It's been going for a couple of years. It's got about 550 members. There's a website where all of this knowledge is shared, and it's free in the public domain, and you're more than welcome to join in and collaborate and help us. And there's a group where we share ideas and publicise events. So this isn't just hocus pocus that this bald-headed bloke with a fluffy beard and a funny t-shirt has put together out of his wild imagination. This has been developed and pulled together with lots of input, lots of review, critique, webinars, presentation, and latterly publication. So you'll be able to find the high-level picture of the framework within Praxis. And there's the URL that will take you straight to it. So there's some good stuff here that you can apply to your businesses. That's based in good collaboration work that's been thoroughly reviewed and put up and shot at and improved, and is published, and hopefully we'll go through a new version very shortly. So that's the background. Any more questions so far? He says, pausing for breath.
Yes, and a breath is needed after that. No, there are some very good comments about people that are on the call that are currently in the process of trying to articulate this vision within their organisations. So there's definitely activity happening out there.
Power to your elbow, brothers and sisters. I'm delighted. That's great. So please look at the Praxis stuff and visit our club website. There's more background knowledge there, but there's more to hopefully stimulate with as we go. So business support within BIG. I've differentiated business support from what the service level of PMO might provide. But the question is, to my mind, starting a business support function out of nothing is about, well, it's not likely to get onto anyone's agenda, is it? We've got to start it from somewhere. And my view is of many PMOs, whether they're corporate, little, that maybe is the PMO the starting point to build the wider business support capability on. And can PMOs step up to widen themselves and deepen themselves and become that a greater entity that looks over the strategy delivery, not just on the project delivery. So that's where I'm coming from, and I'd like the answer to be yes, but that we'll discuss the factors involved. So just looking at building this picture up, then, typical organisation picture. You'll have seen this in Praxis. This is same old theory. Typical organisation picture. Our organisations have a vision and mission that will decompose into strategic objectives we look to attain. Those are chopped up and spread between the change part of the business, where we're focusing on transformational cross-business type stuff. A product group which defines and develops the assets and products that we use or go to market with. Maybe some would say that's part of operations, others wouldn't. But then we have the operational side of it, where we're business service, the functions within the business to make it operate, and so on and so forth. So thinking about that, governance or decision making, we need this at various boundaries within our businesses. And I would propose to you that many of these governance frameworks, these governance activities are not connected. I'd also suggest that they're not supported in a similar way and perhaps aren't based on the same information set. So I could reel off stats, but the strategy to delivery scenario, it's not effective. Some CEOs might argue differently, but just Google strategy to delivery success, and there's reams of examples and stats that say strategy to delivery isn't effective. Many reasons why, but my view is, and maybe yours is too, that support is needed to assist governance and operation of the organisation. We need to make this happen. And my proposition is that this should be harmonised and made consistent, just so that it all works together. And we need to, and this requires a lot of expertise, assistance, and assurance. So it's not an insubstantial thing if we're going to do it effectively. So thinking about that a little bit further, the proposition in business integrated governance in BIG is that we start to pull together or maybe invest in a business support function, which is an entity out of which support happens. I'll come on to the details, but not trying to make some master monster of a support function that everyone's beholden to, but it's just part of the whole accountability and enablement and assurance process. So looking at our organizations, many of us have a clear organization structure, and the hierarchies and responsibilities in business as usual against those hierarchies is typically pretty well understood. But can I suggest to you that maybe projects and programs that go across those things, it's not so clear. The sponsor might be clear, but who are the beneficiaries? Where does the funding come from? Who's doing which bit? What are the relative priorities? And mapping out where those responsibilities lie is difficult. I challenge you, go back to your organization and come up with a map which plots the projects and programs that you have on to the sponsors, beneficiaries, contributors, funders. I dare you to do that within 15 minutes. I just don't understand why, but there may well be lists of projects, but to track those mappings and where those decision-making points lie, it's not easy. So another key component of the BIG framework, and this is just a really Mickey Mouse little example, is that we maintain a map of from main board through to change group, through to portfolio, to project and program, that we map the accountabilities within our organizations, so we can understand who's got which ball, and that we can see the integration and visualize how that's going to happen. Because if we don't have that picture, how can we ensure governance and decision making is effective if we're not quite sure who's deciding on what and who's accountable for what, who's empowered with what? But for us to enable this to happen, business support, bad analogy, but it's the corset that holds all this together. It's not a parochial support function that's looking for this area or that area. It's pulling it together that assists through one means or another, right down from exec board to portfolios, programs, projects. It provides that corset to enable us all to behave locally, but behave in a common way in an integrated governance framework. And there are many reasons why we've proposed and written about and implementing business support as this all-encompassing function, because there are two angles. There's an efficiency and effectiveness perspective for one thing, and there's a strategic reliability perspective. So the efficiency and effective perspective, well, let's just look at our organization without business support. And if you really dig into it, I mean, this is just a made-up example, but it's based on I've constructed a persona which is many people that I've had familiarity with over many years. But we'll have support teams that provide a centre of excellence, that are the base of all fountain of all knowledge for project to program. We'll have have portfolio teams that worry about their group of projects. We've got PMOs that assist local project managers. We will have agile delivery teams that won't call themselves PMOs and hate to be called PMOs. And so there's all kinds of support functions we may find that may be integrated and hierarchical, but maybe not. Let's then poke into the organisation. So the engineering manager's got an engineering support team that manages resource. We've got a production planning team that schedules what's going to be made when, customer response planning, when people go out, get deployed, logistics planning. There's all kinds of planning and support teams that help us locally within our business to function, which is fine. But how do we pull a big picture together in a scenario where the support is distributed? And you've got to ask yourselves, who's doing what where? What amount of wheel reinvention is there going on? And what unshared capability is there that is not efficient, yet alone effective? Is there duplication of service here? Is there inappropriate bureaucracy because we're creating borders through which we have to go to communicate from one domain to another? Is this generally inefficient because we're not using people effectively? I worked with an organisation many moons ago that had lots and lots of project support people deployed to lots and lots of projects, and they had no idea whether they had too many people doing that or too few. And they were convinced it was hugely inefficient, but they didn't have any evidence and just swallowed it anyway. So basically, this scenario, if you look at it like this, it can't be argued as being efficient or effective, and it can't be argued that it provides joined up support. And if we're looking to get from strategy to delivery, we need joined up support. So the challenges with this scenario: can this picture be relied upon to support strategy delivery? And I would propose to you not. So it's inefficient and effective, and perhaps it doesn't support strategy anyway. So looking at this from another perspective, maybe the main board and an executive perspective, the assumption with these guys is that, as I mentioned this earlier, they're listening, they're watching, they've got non-execs, they peer into the business, they're listening for opportunities, threats, imperatives, and goals. They're looking for the drivers for the business. They're devising strategy. They're responding to these stimuli, and they're giving us the objectives, targets, and challenges that we need to change the business, to deliver value in the business, and to take the business forward. But the quote given to me, and I'm sure he's not alone in this, the quote given to me by the CEO of an online supermarket chain said that, quite frankly, as far as he's concerned, they come up with all this clever stuff up front, come up with the objectives, and then somehow magic happens, and they have no clue as to what's happening. And there's all kinds of interesting stuff that comes out the back end of this process in the name of these objectives. That trying to map back to what these objectives were is an absolute nightmare. There's people claiming their project supports this objective. Absolute gobbledygook. They get all kinds of waffle back from projects about how complete they are on their CRM delivery, and all I want to know is the sales cycle time going to be in line with our competitors before the end of the year or not? So there's frustration from a senior perspective, and the stats here are quite simple. The pinkness should highlight it. Just Google strategy delivery. 10% of organizations achieve 2/3 of their strategy objectives. It's not good, and part of the reason is discoordinated process, discoordinated governance, and perhaps, dare I say, discoordinated support. So how do we conduct the magic better is something that would interest them. And I would propose back to them, get organised and orchestrate your decision making more effectively. Don't just lob stuff on the wall and expect governance to happen. Put stuff in place that makes that a more reliable process. And as an example, here's the example. So we've lobbed the objectives over the wall to the COO. So one of the key directors we're interested in. They understand what they've been given in terms of objectives, targets, and challenge. I've got to make these changes, I've got to hit these numbers, and these are the things we have to innovate to keep us going forwards. And a sensible director will indulge in their department and domain planning as to what needs to happen, and perhaps be clear on, to achieve the objectives, what of that needs to be change, what of it needs to be target, and what of it needs to be innovation. So for each of their major domains, they'll have that conversation, and it'll get broken down perhaps into transformation delivery, the projects and programs perhaps. It'll get broken down into operational commands and what KPIs I need out from you guys to make this happen, probably using the same leadership and probably using the same resources and funding to achieve it. And what do I need to set aside for product development and innovation? So we've got projects, programs, portfolios, and product development and operations all happening here. And how do we help? What's the support function? What does that need to be to enable the COO to do this? It's a little bit beyond the project office. It's a little bit beyond the program office. There are 3 portfolios here, not 1. So that the business support function, to enable to pull us these results back together again, to align back to the strategic imperative I've been given from main board, and demonstrate that I really am able to deliver objectives. That's a little bit more than a typical PMO. Not deriding a PMO, but to get this kind of stuff to happen, we need a reasonably deep and broad and integrated support service. So I propose to you that if the vision for the COO is you want this pulled together, you want strategy to delivery, you want outcome, not just oversight and support of results, then we need to up our game a little bit. So the angle here is there's an efficiency and effectiveness discussion to have. We can do support better, and we can help. We really need to give you better support so you can connect from strategy to delivery. So that therein lies the big pitch, if you like. And so just to hammer this home, we need support that enables us to coordinate the objectives with our mission and vision. We need to understand what's coming out of our change, our products and our operation in terms of strategic objectives, not just the portfolio leg. Clearly we need to collaborate on all these levels, and it's a little bit more than just maybe what we would have considered a PMO or even if it was at the portfolio level, to be able to assist. Hence the need for business support. So there's a little bit of a challenging growth scenario here for what was a PMO, or what the PMO can turn into. And can we make this picture complete? And where is this service going to come from? Clearly, it's just aggregation. It's clearly based on hub and spoke approaches. It's not trying to create something that's the business holds the business to ransom. It's to decompose and distribute service. But it's not just specialist support that you need at the start or the end of a project. It's business as usual support to facilitate resource management and perhaps bring together benefit management from those that plan it to those that benefit from it. So in essence, then our business support function is a business unit just like any other. We run financial services and financial support from out of a finance function. The proposition here is that we do the same for business support, that it manages the cadence behind governance, it looks after the resource management and provides a service level that it's measured on, and it has KPIs that show whether it's doing a good job or a bad job. And it's a really solid service that the business relies on, that pulls together this strategic process. Or, of course, we can just ignore this and if you like the excitement, just keep having the magic happen, hey? But let's move on from that. So who does it? What does it do? Who does it? So yes, absolutely. The standard services are all pretty good. So now it's time to get the service set out of the cupboard. Once we've understood what the governance framework is, what we need to do in terms of support, let's build that support using the standard model absolutely wonderfully. But we need to layer on top of the standard services some cadence here. There's a fundamental logic, as we all know. You can't do the the board review meeting until the programs and the operations teams are clear. We can't do the portfolio review until we're clear on our program status, likewise project status. So there's a hierarchy and there's a fundamental logic. So there's some stuff to orchestrate here, and if we schedule it, if we orchestrate the governance operation, we can not only connect the diaries of senior people to make them available so they don't suddenly disappear off because they know this, it's clear and it's time is set aside for it. We can fit in local processes, so we don't have to make one size try to fit all. We can work with and plug in local processes that are clear on what they need to plug into in terms of wider governance, and the agenda hopefully runs smoothly. So we're looking to build a picture, and I'll go through this quite quickly, where we map this out back to that accountability map. If we need this heartbeat for our organisation to run, so we need to have the assurance and the finance teams do their bit. We can then look at the delivery teams, make sure they're on top of things, look at the coordination and integration areas, look at the portfolio type areas, and link our governance up. And these will be happening on different frequencies, weekly, monthly, quarterly. It sounds a bit non-agile, but it's really just meant to orchestrate us so we can be confident that the process and the information is going to come together. So work agile underneath, but let's get the heartbeat on top of it so we can all join in and play nicely. And I'll skip through this quite briefly, but underpinning the business support stuff that we've put together, we've taken each of these nodes that we've mentioned, program node here as an example, and our proposition is that while the subject matter that each program or project has to consider is unique and different, the recipe for governance and decision making at each of these points is pretty the same, and that's what our work shows. In that if we can come up that the agendas for decision making are pretty static. We all review actions, we look at progress, we deal with issues, forecast risks, look at the future. What do we need to learn from it? The agenda can be pretty much a recipe, and we can then start working back what information we need. Short, of course, the specifics will be different, but we know we need to understand the business environment. We need to track and make sure we're on top of actions and issues. We need delivery performance data that gives us a status of where we are, and we need to forecast where we're going. And there are outputs in terms of escalations, new actions and decisions, MR reports. We can start to build a support model. If we look at each of the nodes that we have, there'll be specifics, specific ingredients, but we can start building machinery to enable this to happen. And if we're starting to build machinery, the definitions and discussions of all of these nodes that we just put up here, you can access those through Praxis. Each of them is described through there. So right from main board to program to project to portfolio, there's an example of one of these for each of these on the Praxis framework. Because if we're starting to build those things up, then we can start to look at the information management regime that we need to underpin this. And we will need for this to be effective to get away from the point-to-point information sharing, to get away from sharing this spreadsheet or that spreadsheet. We need to be able to save our information in a repository that we can aggregate together and share easily, not worry about the quality of information sent from Tom to Dick, or the slowness of information from Tom to Dick, or anything like that. This scenario means that we need to build a data model that underpins all of this stuff, which is the original mission that the core P3M Data Club had. So we have that, and it's shared, and you can access it in the public domain. And those of you that have worked in other areas, technology areas, this kind of ability to define our sources for data, to connect them with an architecture, to provide that information that's had some kind of quality check on it for MR reporting, this is standard fare now. And I can see the P3 domain start to pick this up. But we need to worry about this and plug into this and include our profession in this scenario as well, and not just leave the sales guys and the manufacturing people to get all the benefit from integrated information. So whistle stop through, just to make the case a little bit further. In an example organisation where we've got a number of business units, we've got local changes that we want to carry, we've got a customer portfolio we need to resource and deliver because we've got customers, we've got to transformate, we've got a program portfolio and transformation group. Our domains are quite complicated. We're going to have support needs in all these areas. The proposition with the big scenario is, well, let's drive that out of a central hub. Let's deliver the support that we need. Maybe assurance is different, I don't know. Let's do it. Let's think about this in a considered way rather than leave it to local needs and all that inefficiency and effectiveness we've talked about. Perhaps we can visualize it as a hub and spoke, as we will be very aware with from the P3O model. Let's extend it beyond the program and project domain into support for the other delivery domains as well. We're not about trying to make one size fits all with how you work. We're not about trying to create more admin. We're essentially trying to say to the business, if we want strategy to delivery to be effective, you need effective support to pull this together, and let's drive that and work with you to ensure that to happen. And where does this fit? That's a longer discussion, but basically, typically a business support function perhaps sits under the COO. Maybe you want to stick it under a COO, maybe the CIO. We've got to think about these things as to where this comes together. Again, we're not going to necessarily define something from brand new. We're going to pull stuff together. But if we want business support to go across the business and assure that we're delivering strategy effectively, then this is the kind of thinking that this is a component of the big model we need to consider. There's lots to think about. How do we get out of here? I think it's hard to make a case for better support, but what I do think it's possible to do is make a case for business integrated governance and make a case for better support to achieve that with. So if is your PMO or your corporate PMO or your portfolio office the entity we can build the business support around? That's an interesting question, but hopefully we'll start to get the feel that the support we need under big, yes, there's efficiency and effectiveness possibility. We can deploy resources effectively through a hub and spoke model. We can even offer better career paths for support professionals, because you're not just a support person going to work on projects. You potentially are going to get experience throughout the business. We'll hopefully have less will invention, less border police, less poor practice, and we'll make sure we have KPIs to show the service is working. So the support function that underpins business integrated governance should be, if we design it right and get attention, more efficient and effective than the distributed model that we've lampooned earlier. And on reflection to the scenario I gave you guys and girls, the business integrated governance does provide the mechanism to support large project programs. So hopefully we won't have those eruptions of program directors setting up their own program teams that don't fit within the corporate scenario. That's not something we'll tolerate in here. It's hard, and also if we're working bilaterally, it's hard to harmonise as people really do want their own support scenarios, and we're not going to get agreement of harmonisation that easily. It's going to take a long negotiation and be painful. But if strategy alignment is an imperative and important to your organisations, then we can make this case. So if we want to improve our project support, maybe that's the wrong thing we're saying. Maybe we need to go into that beyond the efficiency and effectiveness message that would improve our PMO, and instead go into bat with a message which says stuff like, well, as an organisation, if we want to make the right decisions, we need to pull the right agendas together at the right time with the right people and the right information. And the business integrated governance model gives us the accountability focus, the managed cadence, and the core data model that's needed for this. And combined and integrated business support gives us the support and assurance framework that enables this to happen. So here we go with the benefits: top-to-toe support, greater strategy attainment, more effective prioritization, all the top-down messages. I'll just whiz through them. But remember that I'm not pitching you today the big model. I'm just trying to give you the perspective from the from a business support profession. And just latterly, the business integrated governance stuff. As in your PMO, are you a stakeholder in this process? Are you a victim of it, or could you be the leader? And I guess it all depends. Back to a question earlier, what is your PMO? Is it a support office to one area? Is it a department? Is it a corporate? Is it enterprise? What is it? Because clearly your PMO may well just be a stakeholder in this process. It may well be the victim of this because it's going to get subsumed in something bigger and better. Perhaps your PMO can be the spark point for this and drive out the business integrated governance concept and become more influential and more valuable to the organisation as a whole. Is that your development path with support to take the P out of the front of a PMO and call yourself business support? Because in my opinion, a very capable PMO has a lot to benefit from business integrated governance. For the capable PMO, you become a pivotal part, perhaps lead it. It's a career path. It's onwards and upwards. A possibility that maybe wouldn't happen unless the organisation was thinking big. But clearly, the incapable PMO is going to get squashed and moved on and improved because we'll look at those KPIs and expect value. So that's pretty much it. I'm kind of run out of time, so I better shut up. But there are lots of ingredients. I would suggest to you that the first step in a process is to understand what the proposition might be, understand whether you can take this on as a PMO, and just do some kind of maturity assessment. So what is it in each of the component areas that are presented as being big? Do you know what the status is? Do you know that you're good in these areas? Are you not sure? Do you know you're poor? And as an online test, if you want to check your organisation for big alignment, please do give it a go. Your results will be private. You'll get an analysis back which looks at the results and suggests areas of strength and weakness.
Very thankful that we got to see all of the slides. Some are slightly briefer than others, and obviously there's so much more that can be expanded upon, which has come out in some of the comments that are just very supportive, and obviously those bigger queries about making sure there aren't pet projects and how can we have priorities that are actually achievable from the board down, support as you've mentioned, and where things sit and how PMO in any terminology or title can support that throughout a business.
We're trying to get concentration on the prize, not parochialism.
A very big thank you to David.
Thanks everyone. Yes, please follow up if you'd like to know more.